Well, hi everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining. My name is Anavi Nahar, and it is my absolute honor to be part of the Azure Databricks product group here at Microsoft. I'm joined today by Shanku Niyogi, who we'll hear from shortly as well. Shanku is VP of Product at Databricks, and together we're super excited to share with you the power truly of SAP Databricks on Azure. Here's what to expect. We'll walk through the value proposition, really the why. Why do we even have an SAP Databricks? How you and your organizations and companies can leverage it. And we'll walk through even a use case as we share a little bit more about this. We'll also touch on the connector, which we actually announced a few days ago. We have a couple of demos in there, so please pray to the demo gods that our demos actually work today. So we'll be counting on you for that support. Dialing it back to 2018 and when talks initially started, Microsoft and Databricks joined hands back then. And you've probably heard me say this before, but to me, that is the coolest freaking thing ever, right? Think about this. Two companies coming together to truly democratize data and now even AI, right? You're taking collective customers' advocacy as well as empowering customers to do more with their data in the context of their business, right? This has really now also paved the path to enable agents on top of those business context, insights, and analytics. Azure Databricks is truly a Microsoft first-party service. What does that mean? That means we co-build, we co-develop, we innovate together. I work sometimes more with people with at Databricks.com emails than at Microsoft.com emails, honestly. We partner so closely such that customers don't have to worry about, hey, who do I go for support? You create your Microsoft support ticket. We'll work together internally between Databricks and Microsoft and figure it out. You have that one unified bill for Azure services, as also includes Azure Databricks, and you get the benefit of Microsoft security, compliance, trust, coupled with that speed and agility powered truly by Databricks. And that first-party native integration enables us to take it further with integrations with Copilot Studio, Power BI, and more recently, Foundry as well. Okay, now that we're grounded in this partnership as a whole, let's start with a scenario. These days, it's a very common one we hear often from our customers. Let's say you are in the finance team, you're a data scientist on said finance team, and your company is saying, hey, you need to do forecasting and prediction of cash flow data. So you now have to take your company's cash flow data, combine it with public economic indicators, and use it to explore your company's future cash flow. In this era of AI and agentic AI and vibe coding, and I don't even know all of these terms that people are using these days, we're all using agents to do more with our data and insights, and also to work more efficiently. Think about this. Wouldn't it be amazing if you could just ask your data platform these questions that you are tasked to do by your finance team? And of course, in Azure Databricks, we have our built-in Databricks agent. More than 90% of users use the assistants to do tasks, everyday tasks, whether that's writing your Python code, SQL code, troubleshooting. And now with the Azure Databricks Assistant also has agent mode, and so you can do complicated tasks in there for you as well. It's kind of like having your data scientist coworker or data engineer coworker in this box, right? And that's really the dream. You ask questions, you don't have to worry about whether they have the data or not in the context of your business or your company's data as well. There's just a slight problem, though. The assistant can only work with the data that's already in Azure Databricks. And your company, in this scenario that I talked about earlier, is using SAP. So all your cash transaction data is in S/4HANA cash management as a whole. So now you need to find a way to get that data into Azure Databricks before you can do this task that you're assigned to. Well, as it turns out, that's not super easy, as this eye chart really shows you. Getting the data out requires a lot of complicated data engineering. You first even have to get the permissions from the appropriate team, whether that's your admin team, your security team, write them a business justification of why you even need this data to then get that permission approved from said team. Next, you have to decide how you want to extract this data and also where to put it. You can either build it yourself or through a third-party vendor team. Each option requires a trade-off and has its own implications, whether that's licensing or other implications, plus budgeting as well. Then you have to build an ingestion pipeline to bring in that data. And that's actually where the hard part really starts, because you may have ingested the data, but you didn't bring the business logic that you need with it. And so then you have to kind of figure out and reverse engineer the business logic for those products. And of course, let's say once you magically do all of this work, find the resources, and you actually build this, you have to test, deploy, maintain, make sure there's no regressions in the code. And effectively, you're on the hook to keep this updated as SAP also products evolve and change. Because of this, because of how hard and complicated this is, it's not a surprise that only 10% of customers use that data in their data platform, which is honestly a tragedy, right? You have all of this rich insights and data, but you can't put it to work as you need it, and you can't layer AI on top of it as we all need to in this day and age. Today, we're going to show you how a lot of that just absolutely goes away. And that's a huge opportunity, that 10% statistic that I quoted earlier, because more than 80% of companies worldwide, so globally, use SAP. Companies are using SAP applications every day for their mission-critical systems, whether that's enterprise planning, supply chain, inventory management, financials, or even HR. And this data is truly, truly a gold mine for achieving business outcomes for your organization with the context of your business context with AI as well. Think of what you can do to put that data to work, whether that's optimizing supply chain, maybe forecasting demand, even suggesting pricing changes, optimization of your inventory to reduce costs, improve your gross margin. Really, even you could design better benefits for your workforce as well. So there's possibilities or putting that data to work in multiple different ways and scenarios. Now, with Azure Databricks, you have that powerful intelligence data platform that you can really put to work on all of that SAP-rich data that you have. You can use tools like notebooks and assistant to do that data science. Remember that box from earlier that we wanted the dream scenario where we can just talk to your data. You can build Genie spaces to let users talk to your SAP data and get your insights. You can also use AgentBricks, which we announced a few months ago, to build production-ready agents. Building production-ready agents is very hard for most enterprises, and this just works out of the box for them. You can also use Azure Databricks to connect to the rest of the Microsoft ecosystem, that first-party integration that I was talking about, whether it's Power BI, Foundry, Copilot Studio, you name it. And with Databricks SQL, you have a modern, high-performance data warehouse that you can use to serve your SAP data to the rest of that ecosystem as well. And of course, this is all governed using Unity Catalog, so you don't have to worry about discoverability, collaboration, access control. That's all built in natively. OK, what we talked about earlier, but first you have to get that data in there, right? And we saw that that's not as easy in that eye chart. Today, all of the data in those applications is really locked up in silos, or if you've bought maybe SAP's previous products, whether that's Business Warehouse or DataSphere. You really want to get that data into Azure Databricks, and you have to have a lot of expertise and know-how, not only of how SAP works, but then also you might have to hire vendors to then go and maintain it, manage it if you so choose to, or even buy third-party tools if that's not what you choose to do. This kind of integration is not cheap. It's quite expensive to run. And these applications were also not really built for kind of this hammering to extract that data. So as a result, latency issues, performance issues, load issues also occur. And let's say somehow you're this magical being who has managed to do all of this and come out strong. You now are stuck with owning something that could change at any time and is likely not supported by SAP. And of course, there's governance. We talked about that briefly earlier. From a governance perspective, these pipelines are a nightmare, right? Governance issues are really number one in keeping companies from getting the outcomes that they want from their business data. Data from SAP, as we talked about, is some of the most valuable assets that organizations have. And of course, the admins have taken a lot of care to control who has access to it. So it's very locked down. So let's say you make copies out of this after this extraneous, laborious task, and you get that data out, but now the controls and permissions that teams have worked really hard in order to enable and maintain are lost. And that's super risky and opens up the data to the rest of the organization who may not necessarily have access or the right level of permission. And that's a big business risk overall. Take all of that and add AI on top of it. So these problems are just magnified and they become much, much harder. Getting an agent to be great in production needs more than just a model, the right data, and the context. Let's say you're ingesting those tables from SAP, your agent is missing the full fidelity of those SAP applications we chatted about. You have to do a lot of extra work to build out that context as you're combining data that you already have with the rest of your company's data. Let's say you're building an agent using the SAP data and interacting with external models, right? Like the rest of the company. You have some serious governance challenges. Basically, either way, you're not in a great scenario. And you have something to worry about, especially with governance. And to be honest, when chatting with customers, like no one wants to manage this stuff overall, right? So you're left with two worlds as this platform leader has. This is a quote from an interview we had a while ago with the leader of an enterprise resource planning platform for a large online retailer. So there was one part of the company and another part of the company. So we ended up with two different worlds where on one side they're using the modern data and AI tools to work quickly, get those fast outcomes, answer those key business decisions, maybe get that cash flow data. That's our original task. But then on the other side, the ERP team is stuck with bespoke tools that only work on the data that they have, and they don't get to use all of the cool tools that the rest of the company is. So really, like you're stuck in these two worlds, and it's not a great choice either way. And this really is the problem that we've set out to solve with Azure Databricks and SAP together. Working across SAP, Databricks, and Microsoft, we brought together these unique sets of capabilities that let you modernize your data estate, especially the rich data that you have within SAP, with the Azure Databricks modern data intelligence platform. Of course, this is fully integrated with the rest of the Microsoft ecosystem as well. To tell us more, here's Shanku.
Thank you, Anavi. All right, so we set out a couple of years ago to really work with SAP to solve these problems Anavi talked about, right? We wanted to break down these silos, let you use your SAP data across your rest of your organization, and give those SAP teams access to the rest of the company's data as well. We wanted to bring in unified compliance so that you could have a single way to govern your data and make sure that that SAP data could be shared with full trust. And lastly, we wanted to enable production quality AI and bring all of the kind of rich metadata and context that sits around your data. And so we've been working together. We shipped some integrations this year that I'm going to tell you about. And most recently, with our partnership with Microsoft, we're able to bring these integrations into the Microsoft ecosystem and connect them to the rest of your tools. So you can now use SAP data in Azure Databricks, Power BI, Power Platform, and all those great Microsoft tools. So first of all, I'm excited to announce that SAP Databricks, which is now available generally on Microsoft Azure as part of SAP Business Data Cloud. Now, this is a truly unique product. There's really nothing else like it. So I want to kind of talk about what it is. So the first thing is SAP has taken all of their data and AI offerings and packaged that together in a single unified platform that they call Business Data Cloud. So all of the data from those back-end systems become data products in this single offering. And what we've done is partner with SAP to build a special version of Databricks that is optimized for those SAP teams, those ERP teams we talked about, people working with those systems. It's got built-in data science, machine learning, and custom AI. It is part of BDC, so if you get SAP Business Data Cloud, you've got SAP Databricks. It's provisioned, built, and secured directly with SAP. You can use single sign-on and SAP Identity Management. And it comes with a set of tools for data science, machine learning, so things like notebooks. It's got a warehouse built in, so you can use it with Power BI and all your analytics tools. And finally, it's got Unity Catalog built in, so that you can get integrated governance right out of the box. So first, I'm going to show you a little demo of this. All right, let's switch over. OK, so this is SAP Business Data Cloud. This is actually the trial version that's kind of running on, it's actually running out of Germany, so hopefully, fingers crossed. But I'll be giving you a link to this so you can actually go try this out later today. So first of all, I want to show what's in SAP Business Data Cloud. I mentioned SAP Business Data Cloud packages together all their kind of data and analytics products. So you can see right in this landscape, they've got a data sphere, they've got analytics cloud, but they've also got this other product, SAP Databricks. Now, before I jump in there, I'm going to show some of the data products that are actually available. So big part of Business Data Cloud is take all of the data from those backend systems and create these data packages that you can then readily use. So you can see the systems, the data from these backend systems kind of organized by business domains. So you've got things like financial operations, contract accounting, public sector. All of these data products become readily available as part of Business Data Cloud. So I've got one of these installed. This is my Working Capital Insights product. And I'm going to pop in here for a sec. And you can see what's in here. And what's really interesting is, as part of this, there are about 35 data products in this package that SAP has built and engineered for you to use without having to do your own data engineering. Hopefully this will load in just a sec.
You are connecting to Germany, so.
It is connecting to Germany. It's very exciting. I was trying it over a proxy a little while ago. Let's go into the search. Come on. I might have to switch over to a German proxy.
Y'all didn't play hard enough to the demo gods like I told you in the beginning.
All right. Oh, there we go. OK, so I've done a search beforehand for cash flow. And you can see in here the cash flow product that comes from that data package. You'll also see people have been using the trial and creating their own data products. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But let's go jump in the cash flow data product. And these data products that come from SAP have a bunch of data tables in it, but it's also got rich metadata, it's got business logic, and all of that lets you get started more easily. So I'm going to now jump into SAP Databricks and show you that from the Databricks side. So I'll log in here. This is unified single sign-on, so you log in with your SAP identity. You can jump right into your workspace. And there we go. We've got an SAP Databricks workspace running on Azure that is fully managed on compute and storage that's provided by SAP and Databricks. So you'll see this is if you're familiar with Databricks, you'll see that it's a pretty familiar UI, but some things are missing, things like clusters. This is a fully serverless experience, so you don't have to kind of worry about bringing your own compute. Those data products are shared into Databricks through Delta sharing, and they show up in Unity Catalog automatically. So I can see that data product here. And I can go in there, look at the cash flow schema, and go into the cash flow table. And you'll see some of the things that have kind of come in. So there's all your table data. I can go in and run the sample data, put the built-in warehouse to the test. It's going to take a minute. So while it's doing that, I'm going to pop in, show some of the data. But because each of these things are in Unity Catalog now, you can start to govern all your SAP data in one place. So you can add permissions on who can use that data. You can see in your insights who's actually using this data. This is, I mentioned, a public trial, so you can see everyone who's using it. You can even see some of the sample queries that people are writing with it. And of course, with Unity Catalog, you get built-in lineage, so you can see all the objects downstream that are using that data, and even see that on a lineage graph. Right? So I'm going to jump back in here, look at that sample data. It should have loaded by now. And I'm going to say, right in here with the integrated Databricks Assistant, I'm going to say something like average cash flow by quarter. Run it. It's going to generate a query against that data. I can open that in the SQL editor. And go ahead and run it, and off I go. It's going to come back with a result. OK, so this is pretty standard stuff. But the magic of this is you didn't have to do any data engineering to start using this data, right? Now I'm going to show something a little cooler. Anavi kind of challenged me to say, could we just use this data science agent to do our work for us? So I'm going to switch into a preview version of SAP Databricks. This has the new agent mode in the Databricks Assistant that is not yet available in SAP Databricks. It is in beta on Azure Databricks, so you can try it right away. The data science agent is pretty cool. Now, it takes a little bit of time, so I'm going to get it going and then talk about it. So this account has some of the same data shared in. You'll see with the BDC share working capital, I've had to kind of fake it up a bit because this is a preview account. But it's also got some external macroeconomic data that I want to start combining. So the way I do that is I open up a work notebook, and then I'll pop open the Databricks Assistant. and it opens up in agent mode. And I'm just going to say, explore cash flow and macroeconomic data together. All right, and off it goes. So the data science agent is the first of our agents in Databricks Assistant agent mode, and it is kind of like a data scientist in a box. It kind of knows how to do a lot of the common tasks that a data scientist would do, going and finding data, understanding the shape of data, doing some data prep, and it can even build models and train models for you. So you can see what it's kind of doing. I'm gonna stop this and go to some finished agents soon, but you can kind of see this in a little bit. I kind of describe it as the best way to use this is like get it going and go for a cup of tea. But you're kind of like watching me make tea from scratch right now, so I'm gonna switch over in just a sec. But you can see it kind of found the data somewhere. It tried to get a SQL sample, failed the first time. It's trying again. It's going to do that with the macroeconomic data as well. And then once it's kind of done with all this, it's going to just start generating some notebook cells. So I'm going to pause this here, and I'm going to go and show you a couple of the earlier sessions that it's kind of done. So here's the first one. And I kind of asked it the same question, maybe a bit more wordy, because I didn't want to type as many letters here up on stage. But you can kind of see what it did. It found the samples. It actually will do things like find anomalies in the data and correct them or remove null cells. It combined that data, and then it started creating notebooks. And you can see what it did. It loaded and aggregated that cash flow data. It loaded the macroeconomic data. It combined the two things together. It calculated correlations between cash flow and macroeconomic factors. It then plotted those. It can generate charts, just like a data scientist can. And then it actually created a correlation heat map, where it can kind of show you visually what the correlations are. And then finally, it provided an analysis. And on the right side, you can see it actually summarizes its work, so you can kind of go from there. And it said, the data reveals that while macroeconomic factors have some influence, the average transaction size is the most significant predictor. So this is a great little exploration, an EDA scenario. But I'm going to take it a little further, and I'm going to go back into this history. And I actually asked it to generate a model. So let's see what it actually did when I asked it that. I just said, build a model to predict next month's cash flow based on macroeconomic indicators. Remove months with anomalous data, because if you saw that chart, there was one that was a little bit off. Here's what it did. So it loaded that data again, and you can see it went through the same space. And then it kind of plotted it to detect some anomalies. It found a library to actually do statistical removal of anomalies. It identified them. It plotted it again after removing those anomalies. It then went and created a target variable, which was next month's cash flow. It prepared a feature matrix and a target vector. It split data into different sets for training and validation. It trained the baseline models with MLflow. I tried this another time, and it actually picked two and did a A/B experiment on them, which was kind of cool. It actually found that it needed a library, so it installed that for you as well. It installed HyperOpt and kind of restarted its work. And it did hyperparameter tuning with HyperOpt. And then it trained the final model with hyperparameters. And then it started kind of doing a summary of that. It visualized the predictions. It analyzed the feature importance. And then it analyzed the residuals and kind of did some diagnostics on the model as well, and then came back with a set of summary recommendations. And you can see on the right side the description of the model. Again, it tries to explain a lot of the work that it's doing. It's not black magic. The goal is, if you're a data scientist, this can help you figure out a path to your solution, and then you can kind of go and iterate on it. Now, I actually typed in something else. I said, what does the model predict? And so it then predicted the cash flow using the model, gave me a result. It kind of plotted that. And it actually gave me some information about the confidence of that result. So this is pretty cool stuff, huh? Like, it's the nice thing about these agents, especially when you're thinking about something like SAP data, you're working with data products that you're maybe not familiar with, you didn't create that data. It's super helpful for being able to go and understand that, take two data sets that are maybe not the same, and show you ways to join those things together and normalize them. So it's like this thing in SAP Databricks is a wonderful combination. So hopefully this was a good demo of, I'm going to switch back here, SAP Databricks at work. This is gold for those SAP teams in your organization who have not had these tools. I showed this in Madrid, and people were just cheering for notebooks, right? And imagine what they're going to think about for the data science agent. All right, so now I want to go kind of a little bit deeper into what's behind this thing. So I'm going to touch on 5 different points. And I'll start with this concept of data products, right? This is core to SAP Business Data Cloud. It's how you package these things together. But how do you create a data product? Well, there are a couple of ways to do that. First, if you've got S4 RISE, then you've got these out-of-box data products that SAP makes available as part of Business Data Cloud. Those are the data packages that you saw, right? So if you're using S4 RISE on cloud, you can do that. But you can also bring your own data products to the mix. If you're doing your own data engineering today, you can modernize those stacks to create data products so you can plug into the rest of the ecosystem. We've also got tools as part of SAP BDC to do data engineering on top of, basically build your own data products on top of CDS views and tables. And then of course, as you saw, you can use things like SAP Databricks to take some data product, customize it, and create your own. And that becomes super easy. And all of these things basically sit in SAP managed storage and compute. They're basically tables and metadata in Delta format that is stored in SAP managed storage. The way you share those with Databricks or any other client, you saw today there was an announcement of Business Data Cloud integrating with Fabric as well. All of the integrations of BDC with other clients are built on Delta sharing. Now, Delta sharing is an open protocol that we started about 4 years ago. At the time, it was the only protocol for sharing data across organizations, across products, across clouds and regions. It is 0 copies, so it's shared, data is shared across these boundaries without having to make any copies. It is an open protocol, so any 2 clients can use it without Databricks being in the middle. And it works for any kind of data asset. So you saw structured tables. We support Delta as well as Iceberg structured tables in Delta sharing. But we also support unstructured data, models, as well as notebooks. Now, SAP, as I mentioned, is bet on Delta sharing as the way to share with all of their clients. It's bidirectional. You can consume and publish data products from SAP. It's secure through OIDC, and it includes more than just data. All of that rich metadata that you saw, we're actually working with SAP to put that support for that into the Delta protocol. Okay, now I showed Unity Catalog, and this is an amazing thing for when you bring in that data into Databricks, because all of that data is coming from SAP products, but you want to control the way it's accessed. And Unity Catalog gives you one way to do that. So for example, you can mark data with PII tags or other governance factors. And once you do that, you can apply centralized governance rules that control the way that data is accessed. And that's through our own products, but as well through the warehouse with third-party products that connect to it as well. It's got built-in data quality monitoring that you can turn on, and as you saw, you can get integrated lineage as well. Now, with SAP Databricks, we built Unity Catalog right in, so right at the point where you're working with data, you can start modeling governance rules on top of that and use that everywhere else. And if you're using this together with Azure Databricks, you can just federate those catalogs together, and then that way, you only have to model all this in one place, and you also get integrated unified lineage and unified discovery. All right, now I want to talk a little bit about kind of the data sharing, because those SAP teams also need access to your data, right? And that's pretty hard. You don't want to let them copy that data, your data either. And so the nice thing about Delta sharing is that it works in both directions. And in SAP, in SAP Databricks, you basically got Databricks, right? So if you're using Azure Databricks, you can Delta share those things back into your SAP Databricks instance and be able to use your organization's data in SAP without any copying. If you've got raw data that's maybe sitting in ADLS, some tables, maybe some unstructured data, you can also mount your ADLS storage directly into SAP Databricks and use it. This also works with all these partners because many companies, Bloomberg, NASDAQ, ServiceNow, others have actually bet on delta sharing as part of our marketplace and our ecosystem. So all of their data works in SAP Databricks as well. Now, all that data that comes in is not going to be shaped the same way your SAP data products are, right? SAP has a very specific definition of a data product. They use this format called the Open Resource Discovery format. We're actually working with them to support that fully in Databricks so you can get great user experiences for creating those packages. But today, we already have a Python SDK. So you can create your data assets, go put them in Unity Catalog so there's one source of truth, put them in managed tables. You can create a delta share out of that, put those data assets in there, and then open up a notebook and write some code with the Python SDK and deploy that in there. And within minutes, as you saw in that demo, those data products show up in your SAP world so that your ERP teams and others can use it with full compatibility with all of those SAP products. All right, so that was a quick tour of SAP Databricks, but you're probably wondering, why do I need another Databricks? I've already got Azure Databricks. Who here has Azure Databricks? Many of you. OK, so your SAP Databricks is great if you've got an SAP-centric team or you're just starting on the Databricks journey. But if you've got Azure Databricks, you want access to that SAP data, right? So the SAP Databricks goes hand in hand with the second product that is already now available generally on Azure, and that is SAP Business Data Cloud Connect for Azure Databricks. And this is available today. So BDC Connect lets you connect your SAP Business Data Cloud data. You're still going to need Business Cloud for those data products, but you can now connect that into your Azure Databricks instance. It uses the same mechanisms, things like delta sharing and Unity Catalog, to be able to share that product with zero copy securely. And if you're using a data product in the same cloud and region as BDC, the best part is you can use those SAP data products with zero egress costs through a partnership that we have with SAP. But now, that gives you your SAP data in your Azure Databricks instance. So what can you do with it? Well, I'm going to show you a real quick tour of three features of Azure Databricks putting to work on SAP data. All right, so let's pop up Azure Databricks. And you'll see in my catalog, again, I've got that same share. And so if you had the connector, you could bring in the data delta shared into your Unity catalog. But now I'm going to start looking at some interesting things. So I've got the cash flow schema here. I'm going to pop it up. But one of the things you can do is you can publish this directly into Power BI. We have this great one-click integration between Power BI and Azure Databricks that allows you to bring data from Unity Catalog directly into Power BI. So I'm going to go ahead and do my single sign-on with Entra ID. I'm going to pick my workspace in Power BI. Let's go ahead and publish it. This is going to take just a few seconds. It was working a few minutes. There it goes. All right. So now I'm going to one-click open it in Power BI, and you'll see I've got it open here. I'm going to jump in here into my workspace, and from here I can open up that data. It's as a semantic model, and I can start to actually. I'm going to try my hand at visualization a little. I'm not a big Power BI expert, but let's go and pick a couple of things here. So we're going to pick global currency over posting date, and you can see that real data show up in that shape. So making it super easy to use SAP data in Power BI through Azure Databricks Remember, through Unity catalogs, you get full governance and full security along the way. All right, I'm going to now pick a second thing. Anavi mentioned Genie. Genie is one of my favorite products. It gives you a conversational interface over your data for business users. I'm going to show you a short version. There's a great talk that Anavi is doing with my colleague Miranda later in the week that I encourage you to check out. But I'm going to show you the simplest possible Genie. And I'm going to start a Genie. I'm going to pick some of that same data. And now I've created a Genie space. I can curate this as a data analyst, but I'm going to just try my hand at asking a question. So what was the best quarter of cash flow on record? What did it just do? All right, and there it goes. Q2 of 2016, there was a total cash flow of $684,463 in global currency. Now, I can ask it to show the work. I can generate the SQL query. There's a lot more you can do with Genie. Definitely encourage you to check out Miranda and Anavi's talk. But I'm going to pick my, one of my favorite features of Databricks to close with, and that is Databricks apps. So Azure Databricks has a way to build custom applications that have any user interface you want next to your data and AI, hosted on compute, serverless compute that is part of Azure Databricks, which means you don't have to set up other instances. You don't have to worry about how to secure your compute against your data. You can just get going and go. And so let's pick this up, and we're going to go and look at the app. So this is a Databricks app that is actually using, you can see it's using a SQL warehouse that's actually serving up that SAP data. It's also using a model serving endpoint, and just for fun, I actually created this model serving endpoint by taking that model I created and delta sharing it into this Azure Databricks account, just as you would a product. But I'm going to go ahead and run this app. And you can see this is actually running on Databricks Compute, on databricksapps.com. This is a custom UI that lets me explore that cash flow. I can go and change some of these parameters, ask it to predict new results, and it calls the model and comes back. So these are just 3 great examples of the kinds of things you can do with SAP data. The best part of this is the part that I didn't show. I like to say that the best demo here, like the best part of my demo on these SAP demos, is the part that's not in the demo. You didn't do any data engineering. You didn't do any copying of data. You just got your SAP data product and started to go right away. All right, so I'm going to jump back in here now. And give it back to Anavi.
All right. I'm going to come over here because I feel like it's a cozier room. So with these 2 products, you really have the best of both worlds, right? Well, technically 3 worlds, but we'll go with both. If you want to bring everyone on your current Azure Databricks workspaces, you can do that with SAP BDC Connect. And if you want a version optimized with Databricks for your own SAP teams, you don't have to worry about producing those insights with all of that pain that we talked about earlier. And because both these products are built on that same foundation, Unity Catalog and Delta sharing, you can use them together like one data platform, which is really the goal, right? We want to get away from these silos, get those insights, get those analytics, and then do more with AI. So no more data silos at all. And of course, they both run on the best cloud, in my opinion, on Azure. You can connect your SAP data into the entire Microsoft ecosystem as a whole. Of course, if you want to know more, which I know you're all dying on the edge of your seats, feel free to scan a bunch of these QR codes. Don't worry, you don't have to take a photo now. It'll be available online with our deck and a recording as well. And as Shanku was saying earlier, we have actually another session where they're going to show a little bit more on the demos as well. So they'll also need your prayers for the demos.
Trip to Germany is not included.
Yes, no proxying nor VPNing to Germany for the free trial and stuff at the Expo Theater. And then on Friday again, bright and early in the morning, we'll talk more about Genie in Copilot Studio as well as Microsoft Foundry. thanks so much. And then we may get kicked out of the room like we did last time. But if in case we do that, we'll be right outside for any questions that you all might have. Thanks so much, folks. Appreciate it.